here on episode 10, I'm going to be discussing supplements. And in this episode, I break down several different topics where I talk through the supplements that I take every single day and why and what they do for me, the brand that I like to utilize as well, who I actually partner up with today, as well as telling some stories about, past mistakes I've made with supplements, early stages of my athletic career as a high school athlete, taking supplements, but not really understanding the why behind them. So I'm really going to bring that purpose of, why these supplements matter, why I take them, and really just help you guys navigate the landscape of the supplement industry. It is a tough industry. There's so much out there. There's so much information out there. And in this episode, I really get intentional with very specific and targeted supplements that I believe are the best bang for your buck, because it's easy to waste a lot of money in this day and age on these products. And I want you guys to make sure you are getting the most bang for your buck and you can trust in the quality of the products that you're purchasing. Appreciate you guys tuning in and hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. I'm really excited about today's episode because this one's all about supplements. And this is something that has really evolved over the course of my life as a young high school athlete to collegiate athlete to, now everyday athlete. My, relationship with supplements, how I view them, how I use them has really evolved over the years. And I'm going to do, some storytelling about that, in my early years, being exposed to some of the supplements that I was exposed to, the brands that I was exposed to. And it's kind of funny, actually, one of those brands is going to kind of come back later in the episode when I kind of talk about the brand and the company that I'm partnered up and working with. But this is really going to help you guys get targeted with, how to use supplements to your benefit, which ones are, worth the money, that are of high quality, because I think there's just so many out there and so many different kinds, so many different brands. So this one's really going to help you guys get clear on the criteria on what to look for when you are researching supplement brands. I'm going to talk through some of the supplements that I personally use every day, the brand that I use and really take pride in working with, Transparent Labs. So we're just going to dive right in and off the bat, bringing things way back, to when I was a young high school athlete. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I went to Christian Brothers College High School. If you're from St. Louis, Missouri, you've definitely heard of Supplement Superstores. And so I was exposed early on, to those Supplement Superstores. Me and my high school buddies, my teammates, my football teammates, we would go to those Supplement Superstores and pretty much just buy what they recommended, what was kind of hyped up, what marketing hype was kind of winning at the time. And I think in this episode, you guys are going to see how, I very much so have evolved that approach, and I'm really targeted in what I look for and the type of supplements that I want to work with and utilize. And so, during these early stages, I didn't really have any of that foundation. I didn't really know, the why behind what supplements I was taking. And, at the Supplement Superstore, you're kind of just listening to, the specialist who's, navigating the supplements with you. And, sometimes it's discrepant on what their knowledge base is. Are they just pushing certain products, for their name or, popularity, or is this founded in, research? Is this founded in credible, supplementation that's actually going to make a difference in our lives and aid in our efforts toward training and nutrition and lifestyle? And so I think that this is just where a lot of us fall, where there's just so much out there. And a lot of times we don't really know, the why behind why we're taking something. A lot of times we, see something marketing wise, see something online, see somebody talk about something, and then we're like, let's jump on that bandwagon. So I really want to ultimately empower you guys with this episode, through this information, because I think that like many of my other episodes up until this point, you guys know I'm super passionate about the why and understanding, why we're doing certain things, why we're training in this way, why we're taking these certain supplements. Because when we know that why, we can have so much more confidence in the follow through. We know why we're doing these things. We have purpose behind it. A lot of times when we lack that purpose, things can just get very confusing, inconsistent. And then that's where we get frustrated because we just don't have clarity. We don't have direction. And that why is ultimately what does give you that clarity and that direction. And so, supplements are still a major part of my routine today. Like I was saying, I just really view them differently because at the end of the day, supplements are not the foundation. They're just the icing on the cake. The cake is your training, nutrition, sleep, recovery, stress management. The supplements are only going to help complement those efforts in those other areas of your health and fitness. And so when we know that, we can then use these strategically to our benefit. And so, basically over the years, I got very focused on just the quality of the supplements that I was taking early on. Like I said, I pretty much just took like, whey protein, creatine, your standard supplements. But I wasn't really focused on, what the brand was. What did the brand stand for? What did the company, where did they source? Was it third party tested? Some of those criteria that I'm going to dive into as far as what basically defines quality supplementation. And so it's just important to remember, guys, that these are ultimately going to support the habits that are already in place. It's not like supplements are going to magically override, for the lack of those other habits. If we're not sleeping well, it's not like any one supplement can totally override that. I am going to talk a little bit about some really fascinating benefits of creatine, though, that can actually help during periods of like high stress or sleep deprivation for mental cognition and mental performance. So I will dive into that later, but that's kind of like a unique circumstance. Most of these supplements that you guys are going to take, they're not going to completely override, for a lack of positive nutrition habits, a lack of, activity and movement, training in the gym. It's not going to override for those things. That they are just going to complement those things, except for creatine. We know that that does have some powerful benefits where it can actually help us in high stress states, even in certain periods of sleep deprivation. And there's some fascinating recent studies that have actually come out about those benefits of creatine just recently in like 2024 and 2025, which I am going to dive into in this episode as well. So, as we define, quality, sourcing, and purpose, these are essentially what hold supplements to a higher standard. This is what, I'm looking at when I'm navigating different supplement brands, supplement companies. I'm looking at the quality of them. I'm looking at what the brand stands for, how are they sourced? All of those things matter, especially when it's something you're taking every single day and putting into your body every single day. We want to make sure that these supplements are of high quality, they're legitimate, and they're going to help us and aid in the health benefits that we expect. And so, when we break down, what high quality really means, I want to kind of break this down as a checklist. And so first and foremost is third-party testing. So this is where supplements prove purity, potency. It's not just what the label claims. So there are supplements out there, unfortunately, where they can make these claims on the label. They can say certain things. This is going to do this for you. It's going to do that for you. But at the end of the day, if it's not third-party tested, we don't have that proven purity and potency within the supplementation. So Transparent Labs, for example, is a company that I utilize and that I work with, and all of their supplements are third-party tested. And then on top of that, they have no proprietary blends. They have no hidden dosages. Every ingredient and amount is clearly listed on the label and defined on the label. So there's no, again, hidden ingredients or anything like that. Everything that's on the label is fully transparent. And then clinical dosages, so ingredients included at the levels actually backed by research, not underdosed in sprinkled amounts or in like mega high doses. Like you're actually getting the clinical legitimate doses of that supplement at that's backed by research. And so on top of that, we also want to look out for like fillers and just like artificial ingredients. This is something you guys will see a lot. And this is something that I actually noticed in a supplement company that approached me before working with Transparent Labs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But a lot of these supplements do unfortunately have artificial colors. They have added dyes, they have sweeteners, which do literally nothing for the benefit of the supplement. It's just going to negatively impact the supplement at the end of the day. And then high quality sourcing, making sure that the proteins are from grass-fed, clean sources, making sure that the minerals are bioavailable. For example, like the magnesium glycinate instead of oxide, which is like what I take at night before bed. And then omega-3s, for example, and making sure that those are sourced with quality fish oil. And so really at the end of the day too, I think another tall tale sign of companies to work with is just the company ethos. Like, is this a company that, legitimately takes pride in the sourcing? Like, are they outspoken in that? Or are they, all about the marketing, all about the hype, all about the influencers that push the product, and just the hype around the product, not the depth around the product. And I think that that's why I love Transparent Labs at the end of the day. You guys can tell right off the bat from their name. Like, they take pride in being transparent, in telling you what's actually in their supplements, in giving you a label, with the clinical dosages, supplements that are third party tested, full transparency in the brand and what they provide. And so that's why I love Transparent Labs, because they literally hang their hat on being a transparent supplement company. And I just think that that's phenomenal, especially in this landscape right now where it's like the wild, wild west with most supplement companies and supplements that are out there. So I think that it's just so important to be involved and utilize a company, that takes pride in those things. And at the end of the day, like, you guys have to make your decisions for yourselves. Like, if you're someone who does, like those other supplements, like, all power to you. But if you are somebody who does value all of the criteria that really tells us and proves to us that this is a high quality supplement, then those are the criteria that I would highly recommend looking out for as you guys are navigating these brands. And this is something that was very real for me. I want to tell a quick story about a supplement company that I almost worked with. And this is not to necessarily like throw shade at this company by any means. I really respect this brand. I respect, the owner of this brand. But it just wasn't aligned with some of the things that I personally value. And so, ironically, kind of going back to the very beginning of this episode, when I was talking about the Supplement Superstores, one of the companies that was super prevalent in those Supplement Superstores, being a St. Louis, Missouri based company, is First Form. And it's since exploded. Massive, massive, massive company. And they had actually reached out to me and wanted to do kind of a brand partnership where I would, utilize their supplements. I would promote their supplements. And I remember, getting on the phone, and I thought to myself, I was like, this is sweet. Like, I'm a St. Louis kid. I grew up literally taking these supplements. Back then, I didn't really have that criteria for what was good, what was maybe not as good or as best quality. So I just didn't have that criteria. I just got, what was popular. And at the time, like, it was the First Form, like Formula One and Ignition. Like, that was like such a popular product, like back when I was a young high school athlete. But, kind of fast forwarding to this, recent relationship with them, I remember getting on the phone with the individual, who was the representative, working with other, coaches and fitness people who, would utilize their products and promote their products. And I just remember asking him a lot of questions about the ingredients and things like that. And he was very confident about, like, quality sourcing and like quality ingredients, no artificial, flavor or no artificial ingredients and things like that. And then here I'm looking at, their website and, breaking down, actually like going on and like looking at the ingredient labels and going on Google and like pulling the ingredient labels, looking at what's in them. And I was realizing like what they were saying and what was reality, like, were not congruent. And that's where I was like, this is awesome. I would love, to work with a company like this that's based literally out of where I'm from originally. Like, it made all the sense in the world. It's like the perfect, story and everything to align myself with this brand, but I didn't believe in the products that they were pushing. I even remember looking at, this is actually wild too. I kind of on the back end of that situation, I did end up, turning down the opportunity, and I told the guy why. And ever since then, they have changed some of their formulas. Like, I remember I was looking at their reds. They did like a reds formula and a greens formula. So like the reds is like basically like a fruit supplement. Like, it's basically giving you a lot of the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants that you would otherwise get from fruit. That's like their red supplement. And then the same thing, like the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and all the benefits that you would get from like your vegetables. That's like their green supplement. And I remember like the red supplement had like red 40 dye in it. And I'm just like, this is wild. Like, this is literally a supplement we're supposed to be taking like daily. And it's got artificial stuff in it. So again, for me, I just didn't want to get behind that. And I really valued high quality. I value transparency. I want to get behind a company that also does. And what's really crazy is, even looking back at like some of those products, they've since like literally changed the formula since turning down that opportunity. And I was always so curious. I'm like, I wonder if there was more coaches and trainers and fitness individuals like myself, that basically said the same thing. Like, yo, like, these labels and what you're saying is not congruent. And so I wonder if that actually influenced change. So I hope it did, to provide a little bit better quality supplementation that people are taking every day. So I did decide, not to work with them. But I did, eventually find a company in Transparent Labs who did take pride in all of those things, that takes pride in the quality, the sourcing, and the ingredients that are in these supplements that we're taking every single day. And that's really where I decided, to lean into more of a company like that, where, what they were saying and the product that they were providing were very congruent. And that's really what urged me, to utilize the Transparent Lab supplements. And so I want to kind of break down real quick, the exact supplements that I like to utilize daily, the ones that I take in the morning, during the day, at nighttime. I think this will paint a good picture for, what really is worth the money. I'm spending my money on these. Like, I'm not buying, what's just like crap or what I don't believe in. So these are the supplements that I truly believe in. It's not a massive list. It's a very condensed, fundamental, intentional list of supplements that I take for very specific purposes. And so to kind of start this thing out, the first one is vitamin D and K2. So vitamin D supplementation is crucial for individuals like myself in the Midwest and basically anywhere where you live where you're not getting like an abundance of sun exposure. Even some of those states where you do get a lot of sun exposure, you can still be vitamin D deficient because and there's even information out there about this, but you would almost need like a ton of sun exposure on like your entire body to like keep those levels at a consistently high level, essentially. So supplementation arguably can be even beneficial for people who are in those states or in those environments where they do get a lot of sun exposure. So again, just important to get those levels checked, with your doctor and make sure that you're maintaining good vitamin D levels. But that's something that I take every morning. Like I said, living in the Midwest, my vitamin D levels are historically lower. So that's something that I like to lean into whenever I'm taking my morning supplements. And that's something that I get from Transparent Labs as well. I get all of these supplements from Transparent Labs. So the vitamin D, it also supports hormone function. So that's really vital for us men. That vitamin D is directly tied to testosterone levels and can influence those testosterone levels. It can help with immune system, bone health. The K2, it basically ensures that the calcium is delivered to the bones, not the arteries. And this is crucial for athletes and just any individuals who are spending most of their time indoors or in an area where they don't have a whole lot of sun exposure. But at the end of the day, get those levels checked so you just kind of know where you're at. Next one is krill oil. So this is essentially a variant of fish oil. And this is something I also take in the morning. This reduces inflammation, improves joint health, cardiovascular function, and cognitive performance. This is one where I've actually noticed consistently taking it in the morning, like tangible cognitive improvements by staying consistent and taking that krill oil every single morning. And then at nighttime, I take magnesium. This supports relaxation, sleep quality, muscle recovery, also aids in energy production and reduces muscle cramping. That's something that I've also noticed tangible differences in with quality and quantity of sleep, especially quality of sleep. I just find that I'm sleep much deeper and have better quality sleep when I am taking that magnesium at night. So that's another one that is a daily thing for me. So my vitamin D, K2, and my krill oil are what I take in the morning, and then my magnesium at night. And then, this one's definitely optional depending on like your preferences or, what you personally want to utilize. But I really enjoy using CBD. This is something I've actually been taking for the last 5 years. This is not Transparent Labs. I like to try different types of CBDs over the years, but one company that I really have used a lot is called Le Pragma. They're actually, I think they're based out of like California, but I just buy it online. There was a local shop here that shut down that used to sell it in person. So I just buy it online, but there's so many different kinds. And there's really two types. You have broad spectrum CBD and full spectrum CBD. Broad spectrum CBD basically has like 0% THC in it at all. Full spectrum has like very minimal. It's like 0.3% THC in there. But if you are someone who's at all concerned about like, a potential drug test or just having that substance in your body, like go the broad spectrum route. I personally actually do use the full spectrum. I do find that it does help a little bit better with like quality of sleep and like helping me get to sleep and stay asleep. But honestly, I just would have to try and experiment longer with a broad spectrum. I just really like the full spectrum and some of these brands that I found that work well with me, my body, and helps with my sleep quality. So you can do some of that research on your own and kind of make that determination of like which one makes the most sense for you, which one you kind of want to try. But this one really does help with sleep quality. I've been tracking my sleep for like 6 years now, between the Whoop I had for several years, Oura Ring I had for several years. Now I actually use my Garmin. All of them phenomenal. All three of those activity trackers are phenomenal for tracking sleep and the sleep quality and HRV. HRV is a really good measure of like if you're trending in good recovery or bad recovery. This can really help you get ahead of like, okay, when do I need to pull back a little bit training intensity wise, really lean into the sleep and recovery. That HRV can be a good indicator. And this is something I like to track in the Garmin. I even posted this on my Instagram story the other day where I showed like a high stress period of like basically between like July, August, and my HRV was way low underneath the kind of like optimal zone. and I could feel it. Like, stress was super high. I was sleeping like shit. I was recovering, not the best. And then I really pulled back on training intensity, prioritized sleep, like was getting longer sleep, better sleep, getting to bed earlier, waking up at the same time, like calibrating that circadian rhythm, and massive changes in how I felt. And so I just highly recommend like utilizing that data feedback, especially from the fitness trackers, to your benefit. Because if you see that HRV trending down, you're not recovering, and we got to get that back up in the more like green zone, the optimal zone. And those are going to be kind of different for each one of you guys, but your fitness trackers are smart. They know, kind of what is that optimal zone, what is, below that. And it really is congruent with how you actually feel in real life, especially with what I've been noticing with the Garmin and even my time using like the Whoop, and the Oura Ring. Very obvious that these fitness trackers are great and give really accurate feedback based on, how I'm feeling as well with the data. And so I've been tracking that for years and years and years. And my sleep is literally like always better when I have that CBD supplementation at night. I can see that like the stages, like my sleep stages, I get better REM sleep, better deep sleep. I am less awake during the night and during those sleep stages as well. So those are the major benefits I've noticed from CBD. It really, at the end of the day, in the simplest terms, helps me fall asleep and stay asleep so much better. And with it being a natural substance, I highly recommend it. So on top of that, creatine. So creatine is gold. And this is one that so many people talk about that, is widely known as like the most researched supplement out there. And it does increase from a training standpoint, strength, power, muscle size, also benefits cognitive function and energy production. And this is fascinating because like I was saying earlier in the episode about like sleep deprivation, they recently have done studies, and I wanted to mention 3 of them in here, basically around 2024, 2025, where they were seeing major benefits, to creatine on those with Alzheimer's, also just single high dosages helping with cognitive performance. I'm sure some of you have even seen the like famous clip that came out of Rory McIlroy, the golfer, who was like, in the golf cart, and they were talking about how he takes like, 15 to 20 grams of creatine a day now for like mental performance and cognitive performance. And he's like noticing a massive change and difference in that. And this shit's real. Like these studies are very real. And this one recently in 2025 by Smith et al. Basically it found that creatine helped with Alzheimer's and increased brain creatine levels. So basically by these test subjects taking 20 grams per day for 8 weeks, these individuals had brain total creatine increase of 11%, and improvements were seen in global mental cognition, fluid cognition, list sorting, and reading. Another one was about single dose effects. So like literally if you take like in one sitting, like a big dose, closer to like that 24 to 30 grams. And this can actually help with cognitive performance during like periods of sleep deprivation. So like if you are somebody who, say it's a week or span of a couple weeks where like, sleep is really taking a hit, stress is through the roof, kind of like that period of time I was mentioning with my HRV being low, that would be a really great time to kind of do a higher dose of this creatine to help improve, some of the mental performance and cognitive performance that you get even during those, like depleted times. So it's a really kind of helpful, supplement that can really aid in mental performance, cognitive performance, and just mental clarity when we do have some of those lifestyle factors impacting us, like lack of sleep, high stress. It can really help combat those things. And then, another study was just on the cognitive function in adults, and a meta-analysis found significant positive effects on memory, attention, and processing speed in adults by taking that higher, 15 to 20 gram dosage of creatine. So fascinating stuff. And this is even something I've been playing around with recently. And the context for this is really important because there is some nuance to it. And this is some of the research that I had to do and get smart on as I was playing around with higher dosaging. But this isn't necessarily something you want to do all the time. Like you don't want to be on, 15, 20, 30 grams of creatine every day, every week for the rest of your life. Use it sparingly and strategically. Your 5 to 10 gram dose of creatine is absolutely money. For most people, 5 grams, plenty. For your athletic performance, power and strength in the gym, muscle size, all of those benefits, and the cognitive benefits as well. So think of like your 5 gram dose as just your standard daily dose and supplementation of creatine. And then during periods, where sleep is taking a hit or stress levels are high, or you're just under a lot of stress as a high performer like Rory McIlroy, utilize some of those higher dosages for a series of, a single day or at most like 1 to 2 weeks, and then settle back into that 5 gram dose. But you guys do not have to load creatine. A lot of the labels will say like, you have to load it up, take a bunch, do a high dosage, and then taper off into the 5 grams. If you're someone new to taking it, or you're like getting back on it, all you have to do is just get back on that 5 gram dose, and then again, utilize that higher dosage strategically, in those certain circumstances. And so on top of creatine, whey protein is one that's money. A lot of people know about whey protein, but this is again where Transparent Labs, why I love them, because they have literally 100% grass-fed whey protein. It's like some of the highest quality protein you can get out there. No artificial ingredients, no artificial colors or dyes or anything like that. So for me, this is something I take every single day. I want it to be clean. I want it to be pure. I want it to be as close to that animal protein that I'm consuming in my diet. I don't want something like super artificial. And so I know and I can have the trust that, this supplement I'm taking through Transparent Labs, this whey protein I'm taking, is going to do just that. It's backed by all of that criteria that I mentioned earlier. And this is just a convenient way to hit your protein goals. Like at the end of the day, protein is not some like magic supplement. It's literally just supplementing for the protein that you would otherwise get from your diet. So for a guy like myself, I eat around 215 grams of protein per day. It's right around 1 gram per 1 pound of body weight for me personally. And, while I'm on this topic, I might as well get into this because this is also something nutritionally that goes kind of hand in hand with supplements. But a mistake that a lot of us make is like going so high on protein. And this is even a mistake I made early on as a trainer, where I would go super high with protein, like even higher than that 1 gram per 1 pound. Like I would even get into like the 300 gram range, but then like that would take calories away from my carbohydrates that would otherwise, fuel workouts, and really fuel muscle growth and get those benefits from the carbohydrates. So it's just important to make sure that like we're not overdoing it on the protein, so much so that it takes away from our valuable calories that can be used for carbs. So for me, hitting 215 grams a day through food is very doable. I've done it. I've cycled through eating patterns and certain meals that I'm hitting consistently that do facilitate that. Right now, I do like to do a morning smoothie. And this is something that I found to be amazing metabolically for me as well. I find that, when I've gone through periods of like not eating in the morning or skipping breakfast, I just felt low energy. I didn't feel good in the gym. And so I've since switch that. And again, this is another really valuable learning point where I think a lot of us like to cut out full meals. This used to be me where like, I was big on the intermittent fasting where I'd cut out an entire meal and then have just 2 meals. But since doing that, I've learned a better approach where I think it's more beneficial to just do your standard 3 meals, just decrease the total quantity within those, and then you're controlling that total quantity of calories, but you're not eliminating an entire meal. I think a lot of times we can get really caught up in like these arbitrary rules around like intermittent fasting and some of these other strategies where it's like, by skipping a meal, you're magically going to like lose weight or lean out. And that's not the case. At the end of the day, what's really going to cause you to lean out is by controlling total calories. So how we distribute those calories across the day is really up to us and what works best for us consistently and sustainably. And that's why in coaching people through this process, and even me navigating it myself for years and years and years, I just think it's so much more beneficial to control hunger, all while controlling total calories by still getting your 3 meals each day, just controlling that total quantity within each. You're gonna fuel your metabolism, you're gonna fuel your energy all day long versus chopping out like a complete meal from your day. You're just gonna feel so much better at the end of the day. And so I'm a big fan of doing that. And then I like in the morning to utilize the smoothie. This is great because I find it's hard for me to get like a lot of my micronutrients from like fruits and veggies in my standard meals. I do have some veggies like in my lunch and dinner, but it's not like an abundance of micronutrients. I have a lot of room for, the protein and the carbs as well. So I really think the smoothie in the morning is a cheat code because I'm basically starting my day with a ton of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory substances that are going to make me feel really good. It's going to spike my metabolism first thing in the morning, get my body processing food. So I like to lean on, I do like frozen strawberries and bananas to get the fruit, get the antioxidants, get some of those micronutrients. I then do spinach as well, frozen spinach. Also a lot of benefits to that, anti-inflammatory, a lot of vitamins and minerals in that as well. And then I like to do flax seeds, chia seeds, same kind of thing, packed with micronutrients. And then I do dates to add some like sweetness flavor to it. but also, keep it natural. And then I just use almond milk, and then I do 1 scoop of my 100% grass-fed Transparent Labs whey protein. And it's just like the perfect mixture of like fiber, micronutrients from the fruit, and carbs. And then you're also getting, that protein. So it's just a phenomenal way to start your day. Plus it's light. And I know a lot of people don't really like to eat a big meal when they wake up. I don't necessarily like to eat a big meal when I wake up. So this smoothie is a little cheat code where it gives you that fuel, gives you that punch of energy that helps you sustain into that workout, or, from there into lunch. And then that's kind of how your meals take you throughout the day. It's like, breakfast is going to keep me nice and satiated and energized from lunch to dinner, or from breakfast to lunch. And then same kind of thing from lunch and then into dinner. So really, when it comes to the whey protein, guys, I could not recommend Transparent Labs any more than I have already, just because there are just no BS ingredients in there. This is something I take daily with my morning smoothie. Don't even have to worry about it. And then lastly is electrolytes. This one has been a game changer for me, guys. And this is actually like really sneaky beneficial. And I'm going to break down why. And I really only discovered this through more of like the hybrid training I was doing with like longer distance running, bigger cardio sessions where I'm sweating a ton. This really became prevalent as something that I needed, because what we don't realize is that like when we're sweating, we're just depleting a lot of those minerals in our body. And so if we're not replenishing those minerals, like we're going to feel depleted, we're going to feel an impact on energy and ultimately performance. And so where I really started to notice a difference was like during those big high effort workouts where I was sweating a ton and depleting myself of those nutrients. Like I legitimately almost feel like a hunger sensation. Like I almost feel like sick when I'm like super dehydrated and depleted of those nutrients in my gut. And it's just crazy how replenishing those through supplementation. And I like to utilize Transparent Labs. They call it Hydrate, but it's just their electrolyte formula. Also why it's awesome is it's got coconut water in it as well. So it just adds to the hydration. I also love their electrolytes because it doesn't have that like salty taste to it. I know some people like love that salty taste. I don't really like it per se. Like I'll drink it just to get the benefits and get the electrolytes. But like that's why I love Transparent Labs. They don't have that like salty flavor. It doesn't even taste salty at all. It just, I get blue raspberry. It tastes amazing. So their formula is phenomenal, but it really just helps in those environments where we're depleting a lot of water from our body. And as you guys are like hydrating and drinking a lot of water and going to the bathroom throughout the day, like you are constantly depleting yourself of those nutrients. So we got to get them replenished. And at the end of the day, it's sodium, potassium, magnesium lost in that sweat that we've got to replenish with those electrolytes. And so I find that to be crucial, like for endurance athletes, hybrid athletes, anybody honestly who trains really hard, sweats really hard. It's going to be a phenomenal option for you to supplement that activity and just the depletion of nutrients and minerals that's going to happen in your training. And this is something I even like to do with like the sauna, where, during sauna, post sauna, I'll replenish with those electrolytes because I'm losing so much through the sweat. Same kind of thing, even at night. Like I like to put electrolytes in my water bottle because I know I'm going to the bathroom throughout the night. So I can constantly just keep myself replenished of those minerals and of those nutrients at the end of the day. And so with that, this is really a huge reason you guys can see, throughout this episode, why the themes of why I really decided to work with a company like Transparent Labs. And at the end of the day, it's really due to the quality of the supplements. Like the way I think about it is if this is stuff you guys are taking every single day, I think it's just super beneficial to know that the supplements that you are taking are ones that are backed by science, backed by research, backed by clinical dosages, supplements where you're going to get what you're paying for. And I really only want to put my name behind something that I personally trust, that I personally use daily. And that's a huge reason why I partnered with Transparent Labs. So I'm actually going to link my 10% off discount link in the show notes to this episode. If you guys, want to try some of Transparent Labs supplements, a lot of my clients utilize their supplements. You can use that link in the show notes and get 10% off your supplements. And even if you guys want to go on their website, I think it'd be really beneficial just to look at kind of what I'm talking about before you even buy anything. Like go on the website, literally look at their supplements, look at the labels, look at what they take pride in. Like, that's a company that, I know I want to take supplements from, is a company that takes pride in being transparent, in quality sourcing. And so just know, guys, at the end of the day, like when it does come to the supplements, it really does come down to, how we're using them in tandem with our training, with our nutrition, with our lifestyle efforts. A lot of these things, like the whey protein, for example, it's going to aid in the efforts of what you're already doing in the gym. For example, you need those amino acids, that protein, from your diet, from your supplementation, to help further produce more muscle growth and even maintain the muscle that we have. So we want to make sure that we're staying consistent with that supplement as it's adding into that benefit of what we're doing in the gym. But if we're not, putting those efforts forth in the gym, yes, this can help us supplement, from a protein standpoint to, hit our daily totals, but it's not going to override and do the work for us. And, same kind of thing with some of these other supplements, with the electrolytes, for example, the krill oil, the magnesium, these are supplements that are going to aid in those lifestyle habits. It's going to help with better sleep, better quality sleep, similar to the CBD, same kind of thing. It's not going to like take over and completely knock you out, but it is going to help get you into that sleep easier and a little bit quicker. So just think about supplements in that way, guys. I think it's just so easy to think about these things as like, hey, this is going to override, what I'm doing. But I've gone through that phase in my life where, my sleep habits were totally inconsistent. My recovery habits weren't the best. I was really overtraining, training at a high intensity all the time. And the diet was mainly comprised of a lot of processed foods versus like high protein, good quality foods. And that was like back, high school days, even certain times throughout college. And then, I had the mindset like, oh, I can just take these supplements. They're going to be magic. And I think a lot of that just comes down to the marketing hype, kind of like what I was telling you guys earlier. We have been kind of taught to believe, and we've been conditioned to believe that, these supplements are magic because that's what the marketing wants us to believe. The marketing wants us to believe that, these things are going to just miraculously and magically take over, for our training, our sleep, our recovery, our lifestyle. And it's just not the case, guys. It's going to work in congruency with those things. So just make sure you guys are always focusing on the foundation of your training, most important, your nutrition, your lifestyle, sleep, as well as the recovery. So if you guys are balancing those things really well, those supplements can add that extra, 5 to 10% benefit on top of that. But I think that it's so important for you guys to understand that those efforts have to come first. And I think a lot of times, like, we don't go very deep in those practices, like, with training, with nutrition, especially, and then even like recovery, and sleep. Like a lot of times we treat those as very surface level habits, and you guys would be shocked at how powerful of an influence those things can really make on your life. And so, I'm definitely going to dive into, deeper topics, deeper episodes, where I really touch base on, training, nutrition, and lifestyle. I think supplements is something that works hand in hand with the diet, especially. I think, if you guys can really get focused on, your calorie intake, your protein intake, carbohydrate intake, how much micronutrients are we getting in the diet? Are we eating a diet mainly comprised of processed foods? Are we getting a diet, in high quality vitamins, minerals, nutrients? Those are the things we really need to focus on. And so, as I wrap this thing up, I just really want you guys to focus on building that foundation and really just focusing on the inputs. That's something I talked about on the last episode, is really focusing on the inputs versus chasing very specific outcomes or trying to override those habits. Focus on what you guys are doing, each and every day, toward these efforts. What does your training look like? What does activity look like? What does the nutrition look like? Are there improvements we can make to those areas? Can we improve, sleep and recovery? And then utilize, some of these supplements that I mentioned in the episode to help on top of that. So I'm just really excited, for you guys to do some of your own research as you're navigating supplements. I think that, that's another massive point that I want to leave you guys with, is just making sure that you are doing your due diligence and not, just looking at that surface level hype and buying a product. Look into it, look into the company, look into the brand. You guys would be shocked. Kind of like the example that I gave in the episode about, that company, that I mentioned, it's a huge company, massively popular company. Everybody promotes that company that I mentioned. So again, the hype wins in this day and age, but I know those of you listening to this episode, you're a lot like me, where you value the depth, you value the quality, you value the why behind what you're doing with your health and fitness. And so I think if you guys can really embrace that, if you can do your own due diligence in finding out the quality of what you're taking and pivot, if what you're taking isn't the best, I think you're only going to notice even better benefits in how you look, move, and feel every day. And so definitely use this as motivation to dial up, the training. I can't say it enough. The training, the nutrition, the lifestyle, that is the foundation. And then your supplements, they're the icing on the cake. So make sure you guys are, focusing on those habits mainly. And then as always, if you guys have any questions about supplements, if you've got any, questions about anything I mentioned on this episode that you would like for me to go deeper on, just reach out to me. I'm an open book with this stuff. I like to be transparent myself. Ironically, I'm talking about Transparent Labs, but I really do like to be transparent myself and tell you guys the truth, provide the truth, telling that story again. I'm not talking down on that company. It's just some people out there, they don't really care about the depth and the quality and all of that. Great. I know I am someone who values those things. So that's why I, decided to work with the other company. Use this information, guys, to your benefit. And as always, let me know if you have any questions at all, want me to go deeper on anything, just reach out to me, shoot me a message, and I'd be happy to do it. Thank you for tuning into the Everyday Athlete Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and drop a comment. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, be sure to follow the show, leave a quick review. It helps more athletes like you find this message. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or post it to your story and tag me. I'd love to hear what stood out to you personally. So keep evolving, keep showing up, and keep living like an everyday athlete.